experience. I have just some doubts as an old school. Actually, when we were in, earlier days, we used to say that tuberculosis mein infection does not mean disease. Like 30-40% Indians are carrying. So I was just wondering whether, hope we are not going to overdiagnose people who would not have progressed to disease. I mean, this was a teaching, old time teaching. People carry infection, but everybody is not disease. So any thoughts on that, sir, vis-a-vis the program?
So major change which has occurred within the TB diagnostic algorithm is that now they don't rely on a single test or a symptom to say that you have a TB disease. So they have put in an algorithm which increases the sensitivity, and also at the same time you don't diagnose false positive, you don't rule out false negative. They have put in checks and balances. So like, if you remember, sir, olden times we used to have mass miniature radiography.
Yeah, exactly. That was
to
discontinued.
diagnose TB.
Yeah.
So what has changed now? We still use X-rays to diagnose TB. But what has changed now is in 1950s and 60s, X-rays were used as a diagnostic tool. But currently, X-rays are used as a screening tool. So they are not used as a diagnostic tool. So once you use X-rays as a screening tool, what you are trying to do is, and then with high sensitivity. So X-ray have a very high sensitivity. There will be large number of false positives on X-rays. Now, how do you rule out false positive? You follow it up with another diagnostic tool, preferably test, a smear or a sputum test, a molecular test to rule out TB. If you cannot get sample, then you use clinical symptomatology and other things to rule out TB. You also look at other adjunct supporting investigations. And currently, if you see, sir, almost 80% of patients have a microbiological diagnosis. We still use clinical diagnosis to some extent, 10 to 20%. But that's when the patient is sick, he's showing all the symptoms of TB. So to a large extent, the problem of overdiagnosis and underdiagnosis, we are trying to take care of this. The microbiological diagnosis is very sensitive and specific. A new molecular test like GeneXpert, TrueNat. We also have further now one more test called PathoDetect, and a host of PCR platforms which were installed in COVID can also do a TB testing. So all this, an algorithmic approach has helped us to actually find the correct diagnosis. And if you, we'll come to you. If you miss a diagnosis, you can still do culture results or other things to do that.
Second question, sir, is on the BCG vaccine. I think 2 days ago, there was a news also that they are going to see for revaccination with BCG. And as per, again, old school, BCG was not found to be very effective. So are you going to having a new vaccine or the same vaccine we are going to?
So currently there are many vaccine candidates which are in the pipeline. I said globally expect one to be rolled out in another 3 to 4 years. In India, what they are trying to do is, and what the evidence in almost 27 or 28 countries, which do BCG revaccination, has shown that if you revaccinate the vulnerable population at adolescence or thereafter, I mean, what India is trying to do is at 18 years of age and above, you can demonstrate some reduction in incidence. And it's a complementary strategy to TB preventive therapy. So one more armamentarium in the prevention basket of TB. So the first armamentarium being airborne infection control, second being TB preventive therapy, third is they are planning to roll out BCG revaccination. And what they are also saying, they are doing it on a pilot, as a pilot learning project. So they'll have about 180 districts which will implement BCG vaccination and 180 controlled districts. Over the next 2 years, they will try to come out with some evidence on whether it's working or not, and then take it on further and scale it up nationally. So currently, it's not a national scale up. It is under the guidance of Indian Council of Medical Research on a pilot mode.
Third, last questions are very important. You have covered it in great detail. That is involving the private practitioners. Now, a lot of people, particularly in rural areas, they go to Ayurveda, homeopath, other system. Are you going to involve them also in this?
So there is a actually MOU with Ministry of Ayush. There is also an engagement with Ayush providers at state level, district level. So there are definitive interventions on involving Ayush. They are also being incentivized on if they sort of refer and get a TB patient diagnosed. They are also being offered free drugs, free diagnosis from the program, which they can refer the samples, get a free diagnosis, and if they are diagnosed with TB, they can use the drugs which the program gives them. So huge involvement of Ayush practitioner, and even beyond Ayush, they are also involving other pathways. So Himachal has, Ladakh, and those areas they have Rigva, Sopa, and other pathways also, which are not listed in Ayush, are also being reached out.
Any questions from the audience? Tuberculosis is important, yeah.